Hello there. Cormac, welcome for being here, to be here with me in this live today, live on Mondays, where we are going to be here, me, myself, Tulia Lopes, your communication architect, and guests, talking about everything related to communication, public speaking, professionally speaking, to helping you to increase the awareness about the importance of speaking professionally. Let me introduce Cormac for you very briefly because I will allow him to speak about himself, which I think is more interesting than me talking about him. But there's certain things that you need to know. Besides that, I know Cormac for many years. Cormac is the co-founder of Four Voices. And Four Voices is an educational platform teaching public speaking to teenagers. And he has taught communication skills training to MBAs, C-suite level business executives at the IESE Business Schools here in Barcelona. Cormac has worked with many companies and universities in Barcelona and has been both a TEDx speaker and a host of TEDxIESE events into 2022 and 2023. His career has included group and individual coaching, keynote speaker training, and communication skills workshops delivered internationally. Cormac, welcome. And today, as I mentioned to you before, let's peel up a little bit why communication, why is speaking in public it's important, especially for teenagers.
Well, thank you for the invite, first of all, Tulia. This is a wonderful way to start a Monday morning. I think when it comes down to teenagers in particular, it's they're living in a world where it can be very easy for them to be isolated. They're surrounded by people, but often you see that those relationships are sometimes in the real world, they're sometimes online. It can be very easy for a teenager, any young person, and I know the adults do it too. We're also guilty of it. When you're not having a particularly wonderful time in your real life, this parallel life that we have, it can be very easy to disappear there. And when you're on there, then you're facing another barrage of problems. And finding your voice, being able to communicate effectively in person or online is extremely important. And what we find when we do these trainings with young people, this is the third Barcelona event, and we've just come from a very successful one in Belfast, is that when you give people these skills, it's almost like you're putting them into communication in an extreme position. When I think of the girls in Belfast, they stood up and they gave 5-minute speeches with no notes in the Parliament building of their country. That's public speaking at an extreme level. And if you're able to do that, the confidence that it then gives you when you're handling conversations with your parents or your teachers, or you're moving through life and you're navigating your possibilities online or offline, that confidence stays with you. And the younger that you can get that confidence, I think the better it is for you personally and professionally.
You mentioned something that I want to emphasize there, because when we start talking about public speaking, let's put it this way, most people, most professionals think, oh, I don't want to be a public speaker. I don't have to be there in front of many people. But you mentioned something that about this skill, the importance of developing this skill, which means that public speaking is everywhere. We are talking to people all the time. So we cannot only consider that developing the communication skills that allows you to speak in front of an audience with confidence will serve you only for that. The fact is that once we are able to express our ideas with clarity, that will serve us in every arena of our life, as you said, with the family, with your spouse, with your children, and professionally gives you really stars. Because many problems we know in the professional environment is, I always say, is miscommunication or lack of communication.
Absolutely. I mean, this is a conversation that we have a lot, you and I have had it a lot, and we have it with the children, and I've done it with the MBA students that I also teach, and the professionals that are ready in a company. Yes, going out in front of 1,000 people in an auditorium and giving a speech is public speaking. But as you said, that might be, let's call it the pinnacle, for want of a better word, that if you can do that, okay, right, you have an extremely valuable skill set. But as you just said, negotiating with your boss, talking to your mum, trying to navigate your way through all of the decisions that you make on a daily basis, recognizing conflict, knowing how to manage that conflict, knowing how to express. And this is something that young people, and we also see it. I know you specialize in dealing with workshops for female leaders. Oftentimes, the young people, the female leaders, there's almost a training there to not rock the
Mm.
boat, to not express things, to kind of be quiet and then try to work behind the scenes. But giving that voice to people from early on is extremely, extremely important. And it affects every part of your professional life. And one of the things that I found is that when you're working with teenagers and then you're working with these high level executives, you often find that what they're dealing with are similar problems. It's the conflict in the canteen where I'm not sure how to explain to this person what I'm feeling. It's the conflict inside the workplace where I don't know how to emotionally connect with that worker or that manager, and I can't see a way through my problems. One of the fascinating things about this process in the last couple of years is seeing how, okay, they're operating at a different age, but they're dealing with very, very similar problems. And so if you're able to teach them in school how to deal with those problems, then one of the goals in Four Voices is that by the time they get to enter into the professional world, not only are they much better equipped for it, but they're also bringing these skills into companies and areas that those skills might not exist. And it does have that ripple effect.
Mm. Absolutely, Cormac, because the older we get, the more difficult it is to build new good habits, right?
I
And
thought
I
you,
find
I thought you were
that
going to say that the older we get, the more difficult we get, and that's partially true as well.
that's part of this as well, because we get stubborn. But the thing is, what I found with my experience dealing with leaders, seasonal leaders in companies, women, men sometimes, but mostly women, as you said, the problem is the core is the same, is the confusion in the mind, not allowing them to be clear with with the message, because people, especially, the more skilled they get, the more specialized, the more certificates they have, if they don't have this communication training to help them to understand what entails when you're preparing a message, I say, they speak from the head. And when you speak from the head, meaning you throw information at people, you are not engaging, because that is very confusing. That's not the way we express, we understand context. And I find that one of the biggest struggles that seasoned leaders have is to let it go the need to show what they know, and start really communicating what they know. And this is a process that goes, you have to go inside. You have to understand exactly what you want to express, or what you want that person to think, feel, and do after you communicate something. And when we are in this process of training this, coaching these young people, is the same process of coaching adults in helping them to craft their message. And that process of crafting their message helps them to bring clarity to their own selves. What is your
Absolutely.
experience with that?
Well, one of the wonderful things about teaching teenagers is that they aren't coming to this with any pre-resistance. So I'm sure you've been with
Mm,
this, you've faced this too, that you're in trainings with high level people who clearly have worked incredibly hard to where they're getting, to where they've gotten in life. But sometimes when you're trying to teach them skills, they can be quite resistant, not just to the skills that you're trying to teach them, but also because their head are in a million different places. What we have found with the teenagers, that you get them, they're concentrated. These are all new skills coming at them, so they don't question them. They just immediately start going, "Oh, this is how you make a speech great. This is what you do with your eye contact. That's how you project your voice. This is how you move around on the stage." and they accept them, and then very quickly they start to apply them. And like I
Mm,
said, having a foot in each camp has been wonderful for me now, because a lot of the things that I have found work with the teenagers, when I'm meeting that maybe kind of resistance inside the corporate world where you're trying to explain what to people, I take some of those examples back and I say, look, we can simplify this down. Confusion is one where people are coming into a
mm.
speech. I know you've dealt with this as well as a coach, where they're trying to explain that many things inside the 5 minutes that they have, that in the end they've confused the life out of everyone. And one of the things that has worked for me very well, because it worked in the workshop with the teenagers, to say, look, you imagine the start of your speech as your punto de partida. This is where you're leaving from. If that was Barcelona and the end of your speech is Paris, you need to make a map to get from Barcelona to Paris. That is exactly what you need to do when you put together your speech. You have to say, this is where I'm starting. My end goal, as you just said, is to get them to feel something, to think something, to do something. To get from where I've started to there, I'm going to have to create a map that might seem invisible to the audience, but the audience are using it to follow your thoughts. And that has worked, actually. And that was something that maybe a couple of years ago I would have thought, well, that's just way too simplistic for me to bring in to some corporate trainings. But when I saw it work so well with the teenagers, one day I thought, you know what, I'm going to try this, see what happens. And it worked wonderfully well because it simplified the process down.
Yes, and following your analogy, with this roadmap, absolutely, it's kind of a. There's one thing that I say to my clients and students as well is like, um, you need exactly as you said, you need to know where you're going. You cannot say I want to travel, but to where? And then you draw your map. But also, the important thing here is it's a line. This roadmap, it's like it's your storyline. It's a line, although it has a lot of elements. As you're going walking on your road to get there, there'll be lots of elements, lots of landscapes,
Absolutely.
lots of stories in between, but you cannot take everything with you. And that is
Yeah.
another problem that I find that they have, especially like to illustrate very well with the presentations, with the PowerPoint presentations, with the slides presentations, where they believe they still hold so tight in that belief that they have to put everything in that presentation. Because, and some say to me, oh, but this is the way we do here in the company. If I don't include all the presentation, all the elements, all the content, they would think my information, my presentation is incomplete. Oh, because we have to share those slides afterward. And for the people who didn't attend the event, fair enough. Put information as much as you want that makes you feel comfortable in one set of slides for your handout, but you have to, as your message, you have to clean, you have to make it understandable, you have to make it exciting, make your audience curious with some points here, with some imaginary that you put as you're going through your path from one place to another. You carry the most important experiences. You cannot carry everything with you. So that's
No,
what
you have to
I was saying. But
choose.
this is a struggle most people have when decluttering, I would say, decluttering their message.
You have to make those choices about your anecdotes. You have to make the choices about the transitions. You and I have both seen speeches that are so dense and full of information, accompanied by slides, as you just said, that are equally dense, if not more so. Then sometimes you see the version of a simplified down speech where they've taken your indications and your instructions, and then you find out that the slide deck is equally just as dense because they're afraid of losing that. And there are tricks, like you said, turn that slide deck into a handout, send that slide deck to people in advance, let people come in with having had the opportunity to look through it. But you need to keep your presentation as simple as you can. And simple does not mean that you can't talk about complex things. Simple just means that you're actually actively delivering that message and you're not confusing people, and that people can see where you're going and that they can be part of that journey with you, and including some of those anecdotes. Even if we're talking about something that's really complex, you can still find a way to make it some way personal to you or to them, that's just going to amplify what it is you're trying to explain to them. And that, again, I think is where people think simple means I'm functioning at a lower level. Absolutely not. When you look at some of the best speeches, I mean, everyone uses him, but I mean, he has to be brought into this conversation. Obama can talk about the most complex geopolitical situations with a clarity, with a simplicity that anyone watching him goes, okay, I know enough from what you've told me that at least I can start to understand everything else.
Yeah, and I love that you bring Obama, and I suggest that we bring Obama in one of our next calls, chats like this. Let's discuss Obama style because there's a lot to learn on Obama. I
There's
call
a
him the
lot.
king of the pauses that
He's the
he
king of the
talks.
pauses, but what he really does that fascinates me, and I've told people this time and time again, from the second you are visible, you're on stage. It doesn't matter if you're 30 seconds later when you start to talk. Everything that you're doing up to that point, the fidgeting and the this and playing with the pens and doing your glasses and looking for this, you never see him do that. And I tell my students this, both the young ones and the older ones. If you watch any kind of a video from Obama, when he walks out on stage, particularly when we're talking about huge auditoriums, as soon as people see him, they already have an idea of what's coming at them. Is he serious? Is he smiling? And so he's
His way of
preconditioned
walking,
them. His way of walking, is he bouncing along like this? Sometimes
he has
big
this kind of way,
puppy
very
walk he has,
easygoing.
where everybody can go, okay,
Yeah,
he's in a good mood. It's good news. Or has he come out and his walk is much more statesman-like, and he isn't smiling, and immediately the audience are going, okay, what he's about to tell us is very serious. So he is preconditioned sometimes 50, 60,000 people at a time in those seconds before he even begins to speak. Obviously. And
absolutely.
I still think you can do that in a small meeting room. You can do that in any audience. How you carry yourself into that presentation is hugely important.
Absolutely. And that's emphasize here to people listening to us that this is all studied, practiced,
Yes.
and prepared. Because
Uh,
people tend to think that, oh, he's a
repeatedly.
natural. Yes, he has his natural qualities and talents in certain things. And of course, the more you do, more natural you become doing things.
Of
But do
course.
never take for granted when you see an amazing speaker or presenter out there that is just because this person is an extrovert and is a natural.
No,
The
no. And
naturality comes with years of working. Cormac,
absolutely.
did
And
you
sir,
want to say something?
you did mention extroverts there, so I'm going to give a shout out to all of the introverts watching, myself included. Oftentimes, introverts can be the best public speakers because as an introvert, you pass your life looking around you and getting information from all angles because you're not necessarily comfortable in social settings. So that when you go on a stage, and this is the skill, this is one of the things that again I teach both sets of people. I think the biggest skill that separates a good public speaker from somebody that's excellent is an ability to be reading your audience at all times.
Mm,
And I think that's something that introverts have a lot of. And I know a lot of introverts shy away from public speaking because, as you said, oh, it's just that's the domain of the extroverts. And the extroverts get up there and they're able to do all of this wonderful things that I couldn't dream of doing. So I just want to say, if you're an introvert, take the opportunity, be a public
take your
speaker
flag,
because
yes.
you are liable to be much better at it than you imagined. And oftentimes much better than the extroverts, because with the extroverts I have to work with, sometimes you have to rein them back in and go, okay,
Oh,
you're doing a great job,
absolutely.
but are people listening to you? Are you connecting, or are you just enjoying your stage time?
If you're talking to an extrovert here, and I know that
Oh,
the
I
hard
know.
work the hard work is to first internalize because we can get
Hmm.
distracted with many things, and it's very easy to jump from one thing to another because in your brain it's processing information very fast, and you get excited with all the shining lights, and you drive everybody around you crazy.
But
So
this is
this
it. You get
this
excited. You're
entering
loving
into
the
the side,
experience.
yeah, sorry.
This is it. You're getting excited. You're loving the experience, which is wonderful. But
Exactly.
sometimes that means you're forgetting the audience, and the audience needs and the
Absolutely.
audience wants.
And for
Yes.
us, the work is the centering work that you do your work so you go so in depth to
Yeah.
understand what you want to give that when then you can be yourself, but you have done the internal work prepare, to structure.
Yes.
Yes, the extrovert can go there, talk, but might be talking no sense. And the introvert, it's probably the inner work is there, but needs to be to open this door to go there, relax in your space. You don't need to occupy a big space
Yes.
because that's not you. As I say, like in terms of space, physical space, I always say you can give me the biggest stage. I will be the happiest woman, but I understand an introvert needs a small space. My big challenge is meeting rooms because I really have to be conscious because I know I occupy too much space and I can be
Well,
overwhelming if I'm not in control, if I'm not centered, because I can
yeah,
occupy.
if you're
My
not tone,
energy can expand so much that I can make people
yeah,
feel
if you're
uncomfortable.
not if you're not toning it down, but this is something that the kids get very quickly when you explain it to them. Your public speaking is a conversation. You might be the only person talking, but you're getting signs from everywhere. Why is this person looking down? Why is that person on their phone? There's somebody taking notes. That person has started whispering to the other person. I mean, you're constantly receiving signs. And for the introvert, those signs are very, very obvious. They're very clear, and you start to do something with them if you can change gear quick enough. Sometimes it's that initial burst of signs that are coming that the extrovert misses, and then sometimes by the time you've realized, it's a bit too late to do something about it.
That's excellent. Cormac, there's another conversation so that we can bring in more detail to people here. Let's
Absolutely.
talk about the communication of extroverts and introverts and how we can give our best balancing both sides. Now I want, before we close, I know you have your a next event for the Four Voices. Explain a little bit more what is the Four Voices project to the audience, and then I will give the information here also about for the ones around Barcelona, so how they can attend to the event.
Absolutely. So Four Voices is a project that I began with Carrie Fraze, so who you also know, Tulia, a good friend of yours as well. And then Gabriella and Jane and Carrie, who are also part of our circle, joined us. And the goal initially was to give teenagers a place where they could speak in public. What kind of senior level and C-suite, if you want to call it, communication skills where they could get up there, they could be alone on the stage, where they could talk for 5 minutes, where they had no notes, where they could really be in charge of what they wanted to say. So at Four Voices, we never insist that they change the topic that they want to talk about, but we help them and guide them to turn that into a speech. After the first two editions in Barcelona, we started to now realize that, this is really has the potential of becoming something much, much bigger in terms of we can throw questions at these kids and get them to have ask stuff that's relevant to us now and us in the future. So when we did that in Belfast, we got 12 young women to get up and talk about the future of Northern Ireland. Northern Ireland, as you know, has had a very troubled past. And the present, there's a little bit of a void in terms of talking about the past. So you have these young people growing up having inherited the troubles, having inherited a peace process, but not actually being able to talk about it. And that event was wildly successful, as you know, because you were one of the mentors. And the one
Mm-hmm.
that we have coming up now in Barcelona, we've done the same thing. We've addressed a very serious question that now faces society. And this one, we've asked the 12 kids to talk about the digital jungle. What is it like to
Hmm.
have this parallel life? What is it like, particularly for them, because they were born into it? I, like you, remember the mobile phone coming. I remember the dial-up modem. I remember what life was like when I had to go and look for something in the library. All of the things, and that's just the kind of academic normal part. All of the social part that they have to deal with is hugely complicated. We're very proud this time because that's a big, big subject. We had over 100 admissions from 18 different schools. So choosing the
Wow.
12 winners was really complicated because there was such a variety of things that they wanted to talk about. But we have our 12 winners now. We're going to be starting our training with them in the next couple of days. And the event, I know that you have it on screen, but I'll just say it again, is in Cosmo Caixa on the 27th of April, excuse me. It's a Saturday morning at 10 o'clock. And if anybody would like to visit our website at fourvoices.com, you can find out how you can come to that event, collaborate with that event, and learn from what these young people are going to say. We've only just seen the 12 submission videos. Obviously, there were over almost 90 others, but the 12 that we've chosen, just from what they've chosen to talk about is exciting. So being able to help them turn that 90-second idea into a really 5-minute important speech is incredible. And not only were you a mentor in the event in Belfast, you were also a judge in the competition last year. So you've been in the room when you've seen
Yes, I
these
was in
people give
tears, to be
tips.
honest. I
Yeah,
was so moved. It was
hugely
like I could
powerful.
see my young self there, and I was just hoping I would have had this opportunity when I had that age, would have made a huge change in my life,
Yes.
impact, transformation. I would have made better choices because I think this is what helps.
Yeah,
No,
that's
it's
true.
true.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
do believe
yeah,
that once you start working on your communication skills, because you need to, as you said, you have your idea to express in 5 minutes. So you really need to be strategic. You need really, it forces you to think what really matters in my message. What do I need to achieve? Which
yeah.
is who is the person listening to me? What I want this person to think, feel, and do after what I say. So that helps you also to take the responsibility, to understand the responsibility over what everything you say, but also gives you the strength to know that your message has an impact, and that if you prepare your message consciously, and you can really transform in your choices, you make better
But
choices.
that was really beautiful the way you condensed that down, and how you make the choices inside the speech, because that's exactly the conversation these young people can now have when they're, how do I talk to my mother about this? How can I defend myself in front of a teacher like this? How can I? They're making the same choices, and so inevitably, you're right. It does mean that they're in a position to make better choices and to be
Absolutely.
prouder of those choices and to make less mistakes. And that is part of the ripple effect that we see. You know, when we've trained them and they get up there and they do this amazing job, then they come back to us later and say, oh, I put you on my university application form. Oh, I spoke about this when I was doing my interview. I've been selected in to do this degree in this university, and I just wanted to say thank you so much for all of the training you've given us. It's a very, very exciting thing to be a part of, and to
It is.
lead in my case, but also to be a part of in your case, because this is twice now that you've participated, and obviously are going to participate in many, many more editions. So we're
Absolutely,
very, very
Cormac.
proud of it. I'm very proud of the teenagers who got involved, even those who took the time to make the submission but weren't in the end selected. They still had to sit down and take this question and think about it in their own lives and come up with a submission. So even that mini pause that it took them to make that video, I think that's relevant in their life. I think that's something that
Absolutely.
they're
It's a moment of introspection that many people do not give
ever,
themselves in their whole life. So
ever.
listen, I have to leave it now, just to
Okay.
let know to everybody watching this that I will put information about For Voices website and the event below.
Thank
And
you very
for you
much.
there also, we will be here, Cormac and I, every second Monday of the month, talking everything related to communication, professionally speaking, public speaking. So feel free to send me questions. We'll be happy to answer
Very
your questions. And we want to make this space very practical. Today was our intro, so we were very broad in our talking here, but we want to come with specific areas in communication, professional communication, so we can distill that for you, and we can help everybody to improve, to
And thank you, Tulia.
become
Thank you for
better,
putting all of this together. This is a wonderful idea. So thank you for putting
better
it
on what
together.
they
This is the
do.
start of
Thank you.
something special.
Thank you so much, Cormac. See
Bye,
you
Tulia.
in a
See
few
you
in
soon.
a few weeks.
Bye.